Folks be putting all that sugar in their deviled eggs and they be tasting like straight up cake frosting. But I'm going to show you the right way to make them. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't like wasting a bunch of water. So I'm just adding about an inch of it to the saucepan, just enough to cover the bottom half of my eggs. I also add a splash of vinegar to help prevent the eggs from cracking. Now, if you rather use salt, as Morton says, when it rains, it pours. Use it to your heart's content. They do the same thing, and I frankly don't care. Now, I personally prefer heating up my eggs in cold water instead of adding them after the water's boiling, and I'm going to show you once I cut into the eggs why this is a fail-proof technique. So now that the water's boiling, I'm just going to cover it, and what's going to happen, that heat is going to sink back down onto the eggs and cook the entire egg instead of just the bottom where the water's boiling. You're kind of doing a hybrid steam boil here. And after 9 to 12 minutes, you're going to remove that top. And you're going to cook them on medium to medium high heat, depending on the stove and cookware you have. And you can see how flawless that egg looks, not a crack to be found. And you're just going to remove those eggs. And you're going to transfer them to a bowl with cold tap water. Now, I know y'all will agree the most painful part of making deviled eggs is the peeling. I'd rather go mop grass and I wouldn't wish it on my enemy. So I told my mom that I'd be making deviled eggs this week, and she's crazy about deviled eggs. She gonna ask me the next day, I thought you said you were making deviled eggs today. I had to tell her, did I say what day this week I would make them? Because as good as deviled eggs are, they're a royal pain in the butt to make. But she finally got her deviled eggs, and she paid for it too, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Moving on. As promised, I'm going to show you what the inside of these eggs look like using my technique. And just look at that. You don't get a more perfectly hard-boiled egg yolk than that. You don't see that disgusting gray ring in the crevice that holds the egg yolk. And that's because with my technique, you're heating the eggs gently enough that you avoid overcooking them. Now, I always think of the ShamWow guy with his goofy hair and smile whenever I pull this thing out. I think his name was Vince Offer. He had a lesser-known commercial for this product called the Slap Chop. And the reason I think of him when making deviled eggs is because I'm essentially going to do the same thing here. Slap chopping these egg yolks about 5 to 7 times until they achieve the consistency that you see on the screen. And you can also use a fork for this, but I personally prefer my technique because it ensures you don't end up with lumpy filling. And I'm curious to know what the ShamWow guy is up to these days, because those commercials got to be 20 years old at this point. But I digress. To the egg yolks, I'm going to add my core ingredients, and these will contribute additional fat as well as additional protein. They're also going to add a bit of zest as well as a hint of sweetness with a subtle crunch without feeling as though you just consumed an entire tub of icing. And finally, some tanginess to balance out the richness. And because I didn't want to over aerate the egg yolks with my food processor, I'm just gently mixing everything together until it achieves the smooth consistency that you see on the screen. And of course, as always, there's my favorite part where we add the seasonings, because I don't know about y'all, but I ain't trying to eat no bland deviled eggs. I had someone tell me once, you're supposed to allow the natural flavor of the egg yolks to be the star. But that's a lie. I need herbs and spices in my life. And the core ingredients we added beforehand just don't cut it. But you can certainly adjust these seasonings I'm using if desired. Now, as I was preparing to film this video, a very annoying thing happened that pissed me off. I personally prefer to place my egg yolk filling in a dessert pipe. It is extra work when you could just spoon the filling into the crevices of the egg whites, but that's just boring, and piping makes for much prettier looking deviled eggs. That being said, I have this dessert pipe you see on the screen that I call Big Bertha because I ain't gonna hold y'all. I like to show off and be extra. What pissed me off specifically was the fact that I could find the dessert pipe as well as the tips for the pipe, but I couldn't find the coupler that actually holds the tips onto the pipe. I was about ready to just say forget it because I ain't had time to be trying to make a dessert pipe the old-fashioned way. But at the same time, I also wasn't going all the way out to Michael's to spend $60 on a replacement for Big Bertha either. So I ended up begrudgingly just making an old-fashioned pipe anyway. On the plus side, it worked out because I didn't have to do too much extra cleanup, as I simply disposed of the bag in the trash once it was empty. So there was that. Unfortunately, as usual, Murphy's Law still prevailed. I also didn't have any rubber bands on hand to tie onto the end of the piping bag, so that was another annoying thing which only added insult to injury. But the show had to go on, and I just made the best of the bad situation. In any event, that's enough of my whining, as I'm just going to finish off the assembly of these deviled eggs. The one last crucial thing I do want to discuss is garnish. I like to keep it traditional with just a healthy sprinkle of paprika atop the egg yolk filling, but if you're feeling fancy, feel free to add any number of things for garnish. Also, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recipes and videos. Okay, I love you. Bye bye.